Known for his goofy charm and likability, Rick Moranis was a Hollywood mainstay throughout the 80s and 90s, starring in some of the era's most beloved studio comedies. But then he walked away from it all. So what happened? Rick Moranis was never technically a member of Second City, but it was always clear he could hold his own with the legendary improv troupe. In fact, Moranis' improv skills were all over Ghostbusters, with director Ivan Reitman revealing that the actor made up pretty much all of Louis Tully's hilarious house party banter on the spot.
I was always looking for how to disrupt and get some more jokes in.
That was often the case in the early years of Moranis' career. Directors allowed him to ad-lib, confident he could make his written dialogue even better. But as Moranis' popularity grew and his films became more expensive and studio-driven, that creative freedom started to slip away. Moranis explained to Sound and Vision in 2004, "In the early movies I did, I was brought in to basically rewrite my stuff. By the time I got to the point where I was starring in movies, I had executives telling me what lines to say. That wasn't for me. Not as interested in saying the words in the script as he was in being able to tweak an improv as he saw fit, the process of making movies lost its luster for Moranis." In addition to dwindling creative freedom, another major event occurred that had Moranis rethinking how much time he wanted to spend on film sets. His wife, costume designer Ann Belsky, died in 1991 from breast cancer. Moranis had already been planning and rearranging his career around caring for his ailing wife, having passed on the lead role in 1991's City Slickers as a result. But once she was gone, it really took a toll, especially since Moranis was now a single father to the couple's 2 children. As he told The Hollywood Reporter in 2015, he loved working with the creative collaborators he encountered during his time as a movie star, but his home life was a lot different. He explained, "I went from that to being at home with a couple of little kids, which is a very different lifestyle, but it was important to me. I have absolutely no regrets whatsoever. My life is wonderful." Of all the reasons for someone to abandon a successful and lucrative acting career, doing it to devote more time to family life is certainly one of the most understandable and admirable.
I was the same person. I didn't change. I just shifted my focus.
While it's been a commonly repeated assumption over the years that Moranis retired from acting, that's not actually the case. The actor never announced any sort of retirement. In fact, he never really officially announced he was taking a break at the time. After becoming a widowed father, Moranis didn't have a clear plan for how his career would unfold. In fact, taking a break from acting wasn't something he had even mapped out. He explained to USA Today in 2005, "I'm a single parent, and I just found that it was too difficult to manage raising my kids and doing the traveling involved in making movies. So I took a little bit of a break, and the little bit of a break turned into a longer break, and then I found that I really didn't miss it." One of the main reasons why it was strange that people assumed Moranis had retired is that he did in fact continue making movies and television into the 2000s. The difference was they were all voice roles in animated projects. Older millennials may remember the short-lived 1990 animated series Gravedale High, which starred Moranis as the lead character. He also narrated an episode of the beloved anthology series Shelley Duvall's Bedtime Stories. After stepping away from appearing in movies, Moranis reteamed with Dave Thomas, his fellow SCTV cast member and co-creator of the iconic Bob and Doug McKenzie characters, to voice Moose Brothers in Disney's 2003 animated movie Brother Bear. Moranis also voiced 2 characters in 2001's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Island of the Misfit Toys, which was a sequel to the iconic 1964 Christmas special Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Voice roles would ultimately comprise the entirety of Moranis' credits between 1997 and 2007, meaning that the entire span of time passed without him doing any on-screen acting work. In 2006, Moranis made a rare talk show appearance on Late Night with Conan O'Brien. But he wasn't there to promote any acting work, nor was it just a random appearance by a veteran celebrity. In fact, Moranis was there to both perform and talk about his country song, Press Pound, from the album The Agoraphobic Cowboy. He had previously made a music and comedy album with Eugene Levy back in 1989, but this was essentially Moranis' debut as a legitimate solo musician. The Agoraphobic Cowboy was nominated for a Grammy for Best Comedy Album. Moranis later released his second solo album and most recent to date, 2013's My Mother's Brisket and Other Love Songs. Given that one of Moranis' first big films was the musical Little Shop of Horrors, and that he was known for impersonating famous singers and performing funny songs on SCTV, an eventual side career as a musician shouldn't have come as a surprise. Moranis' hiatus from on-screen acting came to an end in 2007. So what prompted him to finally appear in a non-voice performance again? Perhaps not surprisingly, it was a Bob and Doug McKenzie project. An hour-long special, Bob and Doug McKenzie's 2-4 anniversary, aired on Canadian television network CBC on May 20th, 2007. It featured the duo looking back on their career, while also making mention of Moranis and Thomas themselves. According to Thomas, it was to be the last time that he and Moranis would appear on screen as the characters, which has been the case thus far. Despite his love for the character and willingness to do voice work, Moranis declined to to join Thomas for the 2009 animated series Bob and Doug, though he was an executive producer. The 2007 special was the last time Moranis played Bob in any filmed capacity, though he did revisit the character in a 2017 live charity event. There are a few contenders for Moranis' signature role, and a lot of it comes down to how old you were at certain points of his career. An entire generation will definitely point to Wayne Szalinski in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, while big-time Star Wars kids probably lean more toward Dark Helmet of Spaceballs. Anyone who doesn't choose either of those will most likely go with Louis Tully from Ghostbusters.
Okay, who brought the dog?
Of all the franchises he starred in, Ghostbusters was the first to make a big screen comeback, leading people to wonder if reprising a classic character would be just the thing to entice Moranis out of semi-retirement. But it just didn't appeal to him. He turned down a cameo in the 2016 female-led Ghostbusters reboot. He also passed on appearing in Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Given that Moranis couldn't be persuaded to return to the Ghostbusters franchise, it seemed as though none of his characters short of Bob McKenzie could get him excited again. Even voice roles weren't necessarily a foregone conclusion, as Moranis declined to participate in 2008 Spaceballs animated series. So when Moranis' Spaceballs character Dark Helmet appeared in a dream sequence during an episode of the ABC sitcom The Goldbergs, people generally assumed it was a sound-alike. But much to everyone's surprise, it was in fact Moranis himself who recorded all new dialogue for the episode. It was his first television acting appearance of any kind since the 2007 Bob and Doug special. Despite it only being a voice role and comprising just a few lines of dialogue, it still seemed to suggest that Moranis was beginning to soften a bit on doing cameos and reprising classic characters. Outside of his film and TV roles, some of Ryan Reynolds' best career moments have been his fun Mint Mobile commercials.
It's a full-size plan for your mini-me.
Nothing like that.
And in 2020, those Mint Mobile commercials featured the first on-screen appearance of Rick Moranis in 13 years. Moranis wasn't exactly a recluse. He still made appearances and was photographed at various events. But the 2020 Mint Mobile commercials were the first time in over a decade that he made an on-screen appearance in anything.
So why am I here?
I'm just a huge fan.
Oh, stop it. Come on,
No,
stop it.
seriously.
Given the state of the world in 2020, Moranis doing a fun, smiling cameo felt like the return of a beloved uncle showing up to tell us everything was going to be okay. In Disney's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Moranis plays Wayne Szalinski, a father and struggling inventor whose latest project inadvertently shrinks his children and the next-door neighbor's kids.
What?
Threw them out with the trash.
The four kids then go on a fun adventure through the backyard, which feels like a wild jungle full of insurmountable obstacles and giant-sized people they have to avoid. The fact that Moranis had already returned for both theatrical sequels to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids proved that he had a definite fondness for the franchise and the character. He might have passed on playing Wayne for the 1997 syndicated TV show, but it's not exactly unusual for the stars of a film series to skip the subsequent small-screen adaptation. When there were rumblings in 2019 of a reboot, nobody held their breath that Moranis would star or even make a cameo. Shockingly, Moranis signed on and was all set to return as Wayne in a legacy sequel called Shrunk, so it was especially frustrating when in 2023 it was revealed that the reboot had stalled. And unfortunately, as of summer 2025, there's still no word on if the project will be revived. Despite Moranis' Second City television roots, the actor opted not to participate in a 2008 live SCTV charity event. Even SCTV isn't given to get Moranis out and participating in a project. That being said, when Martin Scorsese gets involved in something, it's a whole different ballgame. When the director put together a reunion special for Netflix called An Afternoon with SCTV, it brought back all living members of the show's main cast, Moranis included. It featured the performers on stage in front of a live audience talking about their time on the show, interspersed with clips. Despite being announced in 2018 and with a stage component having already been filmed, the special is currently in limbo. It was initially believed to have been shelved entirely by Netflix, though clarification later came that Scorsese simply became too busy with other projects and hasn't yet had the time to complete it. Rumors about a Spaceballs sequel have been circulating for many years, and it's not because the movie was so beloved. In fact, Spaceballs wasn't particularly well-liked by critics upon its release. The sequel was actually mentioned within the original film, which was of course a joke.
God willing, we'll all meet again in Spaceballs 2, to search for more money.
But there are probably people out there who still hoped it would eventually happen. In 2014, Spaceballs director Mel Brooks told Parade that Moranis had long been one of the biggest things holding back a Spaceballs sequel, saying, "Without Rick, I wouldn't do it." Well, given how few projects Moranis participates in, it seemed like Spaceballs 2 was going to forever remain an unrealized dream for fans of the sci-fi parody. But in June 2025, Brooks shocked the world by officially announcing Spaceballs 2, quickly followed by confirmation that Moranis was going to reprise the role of Dark Helmet.
We asked, what do the fans want?
But instead, we're making this movie.
It seems that the Schwartz ultimately proved too powerful a force for Moranis to resist.